Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union Board. It says special board meeting. That is not true. This is our regular. It was going to be special, yes, but now it's just a regular meeting. So let me see. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I don't have any.
Nor do I.
Amy, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Oh, thank you.
Hi. Hello, Bill.
Hello.
I want to take up all the table.
You deserve every inch of the table.
Okay, first on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. And we have minutes from our regularly scheduled meeting of January 30th. We have minutes from February 9th, which was a special meeting around our superintendent search. And we have minutes from our special meeting of February 13th, which was also our superintendent search and regarding interviewing. I will take a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved, Davis.
That is Davis. Thank you. Is there a second?
Rebecca, second.
Thank you, Rebecca. Are there any corrections, clarifications, additions, etc., that need to be made to any of the minutes? Hearing none, I will do a roll call. And I'm going to start with people in the room. Bill.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Colleen.
Meeting minutes?
Yes.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Nancy.
We can't hear you, Nancy.
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, thank you. And Rebecca.
Aye.
Wonderful, thank you. The minutes have been approved. And next, we have public participation on items not related to the agenda and any announcements. Let's see, Rebecca.
Yes, I did want to announce that the Windsor Jedi Committee, which is the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee in Windsor, will be having a potluck on March 9th at the Welcome Center in Windsor. And the focus of this potluck, or the focus of the discussion, is going to be looking at the influence of the arts on justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And they're looking for input from local artists. So that's going to be happening next Thursday, not this week. And it's real interesting because they're looking at creating a project of some sort. It may be a mural, it may be an art exhibition. So it's really exciting. And I just wanted folks to know if they had the time to come out, it should be an interesting and a very good discussion.
Nice. And what time and where again?
It's at 6:30 at the Welcome Center, down across from the Windsor Station restaurant in Windsor.
Great, thank you. Are there any other comments or announcements? Hearing none, we will move on to our items for discussion. And at the top of that list is the equity audit update.
I'm going to give you that and just a little bit more of what we're doing in terms of our DEI work in the SU, if that's okay. So the equity audit, I'll start with that, was the focus groups, which was phase 3, were completed last week. There was one final interview, and that was with me, and I did it on Wednesday. So the consultant, Kate England, she is now working on compiling the report. It'll take her 3 to 4 weeks. Should be done mid to late March, and then it will come to us. And then, you know, some of the work that we need to do is make a plan on how we're going to roll that information out. And so we've been working with Mary Gannon, who's our consultant, and the administrative team, and Angie, in figuring out how we use that data as a starting point with staff, because I think the staff need to see it first, and then
Exactly.
and then roll it out to the community. We've talked about how we embed that work in everything that we do, but really start with a baseline for all staff, because we haven't done that. We haven't had a, you know, what is educational equity discussion framework workshop with the entire staff yet, and we think we need to do that. And we think that equity audit would be a great starting place for some of that work. So just to let you know, Mary has been coming to, well, she came to the last administrative team meeting before the break on the 15th, and she's really trying to make sure that administrative team has a common understanding and a baseline of what educational equity is and what our role is as school leaders in that work. So she did that. Last week, she's going to come back because she didn't finish that work. The coordinator of diversity, equity, and inclusion position is going to get posted this week. So we're ready to post the full-time position, and it's hiring season, so we need to do that.
Great.
So that's exciting. I did check in with Jackie Wilson, the consultant who is also engaged in some of this work at the with the Vermont School Board Association. She was going to come actually tonight.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I called her to see if she could come in March and do that training, and at this time, one of the members of the VSBA staff is leaving, so that is on
Yes.
hold for now, but I'll continue to check in with her. And then the last thing I wanted to share is Mary Gannon did attend the staff equity team meeting this afternoon. They met, their monthly meeting. And Katie is here, and if it's okay, she was at that meeting. She's gonna do a quick report out on what that work looked like.
So Mary met with us today during our monthly meeting, and she did a bit of what she explained to the board the other day, as well as what she explained and worked with the administrative team to just work on a common understanding. We're going to have her come back for our next meeting and really look at the definition of the equity work that what that looks like for our SU. And I think that's most of her focus was building on that common understanding. She also listened to a lot of staff at that meeting, which was representative of the SU, talk about where we're currently at and answered some great questions. It was really nice to have her there. So she's made herself available to that group, and we'll continue to work with her.
Great, thank you.
So that's where we're at.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Rebecca, your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you, Amy. Christine, I have a couple of questions. I was wondering, wasn't the staff included or certain staff members included in the equity surveys and forums?
Through the equity audit,
Yes.
all staff were invited to attend, and we had representation from all our schools. So staff, yes.
Okay. And my second question is, I know that you have the staff equity meeting, and that's really wonderful. And I'm wondering if you are going to consider bringing back another group that involves parents, community members, and others, so that you have community engagement in this conversation, in addition, as we move forward.
Yeah, we've talked about that, Rebecca. It's a great question. We've talked about it actually at length. The decision was to keep the staff group separate, kind of a safe place where they could talk about issues without having, parents present, which is important. And figuring out how to not duplicate the work, but figure out how to meld the work with maybe committees like the JEDI committee that's already meeting in town, so that we're not having all sorts of committees doing the same thing. So Mary, it's a discussion that we've had with her as well, and it's just figuring out how to do that. And so that's on our list.
Great,
But-
thank you.
Absolutely.
Were there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we are moving into the policies.
Amy's favorite.
Oh my goodness, dozens of them. Okay, first is the notice of non-discrimination, and that is the first read for that one. And let me see. I printed most of them, but not all of them. So, does anyone have any comments or questions on this yet?
Yes. How does this correspond with other policies we already have regarding equity, discrimination, and so forth? Is there crossover? Also, does anyone know if this is a required policy or not?
Given the fact that it is to comply with regulations implementing Title VI, Title VII, and Title IX, and Section 504, and other non-discrimination laws and regulations.
That's probably yes.
Yeah,
I'm checking.
yeah,
I mean, I
so
have no problem with the policy, it's pretty boilerplate.
Yeah.
it's very boilerplate. And that, again, it doesn't go into the detail of our anti-racism and equity policies. I think when we finally adopt this, that text box at the top should be
Comes off, yeah.
removed, as well as the disclaimer at the bottom.
Because it is so boilerplate, I firmly believe that this has been pretty thoroughly legally vetted.
Oh, yes.
So,
Yeah, just an aside, any of the policies that are either required, recommended, et cetera, and there's a template on the Vermont School Board Association website. Those have been discussed with legal counsel, as well as with the AOE and Superintendent Association and the Principals Association. I mean, they all get together and have a lot of conversation before it ever gets posted onto their website. Rebecca?
So I would imagine that because most of these do come from the Vermont School Board Association, that they probably have been cross-assessed with the other policies like the anti-racism policy. But one of the things that I had a question about was in the back where it says the designated coordinator. And do we know who some of these designated coordinators are?
Yes,
We do.
Okay. Okay, so that name would be made available once the policy is adopted and made and given to the community members and parents.
But I don't think you would, are you saying that those names should go in the policy or just made available?
They shouldn't go in the policy.
Oh, yeah, definitely not.
yeah,
But maybe the handbook.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So you don't have parents trying to find, who these names. I just think that it's really important for them to be able to go straight to the person as opposed to go through many people to find out who they need to deal with.
And I believe it is on in the handbook
Should be in the handbook, but I'm
now.
gonna put it on our list to double check, make sure.
Beth?
Could you just also put in the position they hold instead, so then you're not changing it anytime there's a staff changeover?
Yeah, that's the way it's listed in other policies. I mean, it's typically, you have them here, Katie and Angie do a lot of that. So, yeah, but I'm gonna make sure we have it in our handbook.
Okay, did someone else raise a hand? Did I miss that? No. Okay, so that was the notice of non-discrimination. Are there any other comments, questions? Okay, next, we have proficiency-based graduation requirements. And that is one that I printed out for myself, so I'm not flipping tabs. So on here, the first reading was January 23rd. And there's still in the second paragraph, the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union will not.
Yeah, because we didn't actually do the policies in January, so I'm gonna
Okay,
have to,
oh, right, we
Laura
didn't,
changed
That was the
that.
canceled one, I think.
so
That
that'll
was-
be,
yeah.
the first read will be February 27th.
Okay,
So we'll fix that.
yeah, thank you.
And you definitely need to pick will or will not, for sure.
I was gonna say, that's an important
Yeah.
decision.
And we do, so we'll
Yeah.
put will, We'll take out the-
No,
will not.
I have strong opinions about this.
Okay, let's talk about it. I think currently it's credit bearing.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's two parts here. So the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union will or will not use credits for the purpose of demonstrating that a student has met the graduation requirements. It's not required by the state.
It's not, right?
And basically, from my experience with other high schools, that will remain nameless at this time, what I find is because the use of credits continue, only lip service is played towards EBGRs, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my strong feelings would that we would have, will not use credits.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that we don't continue to grant credits,
Mhm.
because being so close to New Hampshire, we kind of necessary to be able to have students go from one state to another
Mhm.
with credits. Also to be able to, the second one is pretty, students in the Windsor Southeast Supervising Union will receive credit for learning that takes place
Yeah.
outside of school. That's
That's a
pretty
will.
much a given.
Yeah,
And so if it's in policy that credit per the requirements of the state of Vermont are not used to decide if a student has met the skills necessary to graduate. That's the purpose of the law. And if we do otherwise in policy, then that doesn't give the motivation to actually begin to move that direction of a true standards-based, proficiency-based graduation school district. So that is my opinion.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rebecca?
So, help me to understand this. So what you're saying is that right now, our high school students, when they graduate, we are using a proficiency-based graduation requirements. We're using PDGRs. We are not using any credits to identify their proficiency in a particular area.
Not currently, right now,
Not currently.
not currently,
That's not practice right now.
right, but
Currently, we do credits.
we do credits.
I mean, they receive those credits based on achievement of a certain level of proficiency, based on their,
But they need so
Proficiency
many
score.
credits to graduate currently.
And I understand what Bill's saying. I'm glad you brought this up, because it's what I wondered reading this, is that, so we'll still be giving credits, but those credits are not used for the purpose of demonstrating the student has met graduation requirements,
Right.
correct? Yeah.
So how are you identifying? So there needs to be some sort of a cheat sheet that's clearly transferring those credits into. I'm just trying to think of what that final document looks like in terms of how they have achieved certain credits. When I was a guidance counselor, we all had sheets. We basically knew, well, we also were transferring, but prior to that, we had sheets which said this student achieved, 3 credits, 4 credits over in English over a 4-year period or a 3-year period. And we were able to identify what they received. And so when we sent, when we were checking them off before graduating and saying, okay, you've accomplished everything that you need to accomplish in order to fulfill your graduation requirements. How is that being done right now? I'm just not clear.
Well, I can explain how it's supposed to be done. Is basically credits basically measure seat time and getting a passing grade. PBGRs is based upon a set of standards, minimum of proficiency that measures the proficiencies that the districts have laid out. Communications, the ability to, all these things that are in our standards, those have to be measured, not by finishing a course, but by in some other means. The way it's supposed to be done is that measurement is done through, it doesn't matter what class you're taking, of these different standards, and the student reaches those proficiencies, I switched back from proficiency and standards, and I know they're not the exact same thing. A student has reached a mastery level in that particular proficiency, and that checks it off as they're finished with that level. And it is an ongoing building process on how to measure those. It doesn't mean that this class or a graduating senior hasn't gone through particular classes and received credits. It's just that those credits aren't tallied in a check-based system to decide if the student has qualify for graduation. Per law of the state of Vermont.
Larry,
So-
just-
So if a parent has a sophomore in the school and they want to sit down with the counselor, with the student to look at where they are in this process, they're a sophomore. They have supposedly 2 more years. And in those 2 years, the parent wants to know, what is it that my child requires in order to satisfy the state requirements for graduation? Will they be able to see that and understand that?
Since 2020, the school's supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah, so Larry,
Yeah, I have really more of a mechanical question if this was adopted. So if it says, obviously, learning that takes place off campus, they will receive credit, right? So if they take like a Dartmouth class or a CCD class, they'll get credits. But if you truly implement PBGRs, the way I believe the policy is being read, it would look odd on a transcript. So for example, on a transcript, you'd have the PBGRs, and then you'd have these other classes with 2 credits, 1 credit, 1 credit. So instead of having whatever they need for high school, let's say right now today, seat time is 60 credits or whatever it is to graduate, that person might have, one kid might have 10, another kid might have 2, because they took 2 CCD classes, the other kid took more, or one kid might take no CCD classes. Oh, and they only have the PBGRs. So I'm just wondering mechanically how that would look to a
Well,
transcript.
I've seen it done in a couple different schools.
can you
Washington
turn
State.
this way, so-
Washington, U32 does a great job. They list both,
Yeah.
okay, so they list their grades, their credit, and the both. As a border state, with a state that has a credit requirement by law, there's no way we can't give credit for a class, okay? So basically, you're talking about both. We have to report.
We have to do both.
We have to do both, because if a student leaves here, we're not gonna scramble and say, okay, this student took biology and so forth and so on. But as part of a report card, you also report out where the student is on the PBGRs.
So I guess the question would be, as far as the policy is concerned, the second paragraph, the Winchester side will not use credits. You're saying they don't have a choice, we have to use credits.
Not for graduation
Not for
requirement.
graduation.
You
Yeah,
can
that's
still
But for
use them,
transferring this,
yes.
so we have to, okay,
It's-
so guidance counselors would have to modify and report out on any credits they would have received if they're gonna transfer to Claremont.
So, no, not really.
Okay.
Okay, just because we're saying in policy that we, as a school district, will not use credits, doesn't mean we can't keep track of them. There's no reason why we can't still keep track of them.
Okay,
And I think it's a good tool to keep track of what credits they've
yeah,
got.
I got you, I understand. All right, so everything would stay the same within the mechanical piece.
Right.
But this is a different discussion, okay. Right.
Yeah, and the way I read, and Beth, I see that your hand is raised, and Kate and Caitlin, and I will, just a moment. The way I read the statement, students in Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union will receive credit for learning that takes place outside the school. I don't see that as credit in the traditional, like you're getting 3 credits for whatever. Because not everything that a person does outside of the school in
You see it as
personalized learning, proficiency, yeah,
You see it as lowercase c instead of capital C.
yeah,
So
yeah,
They receive
exactly.
credit.
Yeah.
That it will be acknowledged as a way that they have learned something. Yeah, like the student who, for their PE credit, takes dance classes or gymnastics classes and is able to show that they are proficient in whatever way that they have chosen. They receive acknowledgement, but credit for that.
Mhm.
Okay, Beth,
Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure I I'm understanding this. It seems a little convoluted. And so my understanding is that like right now we do give out credits and kids have to have a certain number of credits to graduate, correct? And so they're also supposed to be having these proficiency-based requirements as well, right? So in my mind, it makes me think of like D's get degrees kind of situation, in that like you can still have a solid D or a 2, rating across everything you do through your entire career, and you would still get your degree because you still would graduate because you have all the credits you need, but then you may not be proficient. Like, are we in the, like, if we pass this policy, are we in the ability to say that D's get degrees situation is no longer acceptable because that is no longer considered proficient?
So getting 2 is that what she's asking?
Yeah, like what's, like what, so how are we, are we in a situation where we are prepared to evaluate this once this policy is put forth? Because it seems really, if we put this policy forth and we have no ability to actually follow through, then we're just being woefully irresponsible, it seems like.
We are not there yet. So
Yeah, I mean that, and I don't know.
no, it's
Yeah.
gonna take work to get
So
there.
do we have to do we put the policy in place just to put the screws on? Like what comes first? Do we need to put the policy out there and then we're not following in the policy and that's a bad thing? Like, how do we, what's the best, I guess, way to move that forward then without putting people in the hot seat, I guess?
Well, so proficiency-based graduation requirements have been a law for a couple of years now. And it has taken a significant amount of time to work that into the common practice in any given school in the state of Vermont. Some schools are just, yes, we got this. Other schools, for whatever reason, it's taking more time. There has to be a considerable amount of time and effort and support for professional development to work towards this. I remember when we first started talking about proficiency-based grading, that there was a significant amount of tension and concern about what that would look like. And there was a significant amount of pushback, and that came at every level. So we're still working on it. And I think it will probably always be a work in progress. I mean, the flexible pathways that kind of gave birth to proficiency-based graduation requirements, that has been around for 8 or 9 years. And it is only now that we can feel that that we're working towards a real flexible pathway opportunity for all of our students. And it's the same with proficiency-based graduation requirements, or with proficiency-based grading, that there are still some classes that some instructors are having a little bit more time getting their arms around it. So having this policy in place, then we have that policy to say, we have a policy, that there's a law and we have a policy, and this is what we're doing.
Thank you.
Very well.
Kate.
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to say pretty much what Amy said. This is a work in progress, but we are moving forward. We're moving forward in 2 ways. We have a team scheduled to visit 2 different schools Otter Valley being one that supposedly is really good at this and talking about the transcripts and what they look like as well. And I guess the other one, Bill, you want to still remain nameless, so it will remain nameless, but we are visiting there to learn from there. And part two is we're really trying to pick up the flexible pathways this year. We've paused on our scheduling because typically in the past, we had said these are the classes we are offering. Please pick out what classes you want to take. We do have those sheets, Rebecca, that say class of like 2023, you need 23 credits to graduate. Here's where you're at. And this year we sent out a survey to students asking what classes they wanted. And as a result, so far, we've put in American Sign Language as a language for next year. And our PE classes are going to change from, or hoping to change from just PE to, which we'll still offer, but to like a yoga class or a personal fitness class that they can take in school, but also trying to educate the students and the parents on what exactly flexible pathways consist of and all the opportunities you have to earn credit. So I don't know where all that falls into the policy, but I just wanted to let you know that all that work was going on now.
Thank you. That is really exciting to hear that. And I believe it fits very nicely into this policy. And also that once this policy has been approved, then that also gives the support for moving forward with that type of class schedule and the offerings. And Rebecca, is your hand raised from before, or do you have another question?
No, thank you, Amy. I have another question. Just based on what Kate was saying, I was looking at this document and trying to see where in this document we would be able to sort of give an ongoing report on the work that's being done, because we can have this conversation next year and not have the background that Kate just shared with us, that there's been, a meeting and that there have been school visits and a team has gone out. So I'm just wondering, how do we sort of not only have the document, the policy, but also an ongoing sort of a report that's kind of pointing us in that direction?
Did you look at page 2?
No, I didn't, Bill.
Page 2 has the administrative procedure, and that's on the reporting.
Oh, I do see it. It's in the back. So where would that? Okay.
So we'll build that into our report structure.
Right.
Thank you.
Some of it will be likely part of Angie's curriculum report going forward.
Yeah. And Caitlin Gould, your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you. So couple questions. Beth so elegantly put a couple of my concerns up there. And my, I think, biggest question is with the transition from, credit-based graduation to proficiency-based graduation, how is that going to be reflective of like the Vermont standards on what classes are required for graduation? And I know that can be through flexible pathways as well as figuring out, which classes still meet the, standards and competencies for those specific areas, such as, the 4 credits in English, the 3 credits, like the credits for math, the credits for social studies, electives, things like that. How are we going to measure those credits through flexible pathways and proficiency based? And then also along with this, is there going to, it says, the PBGRs are going to be described through through learning, through policies, through learning standards adopted by the state. Are those going to be fluid policies that we see, and we see, what those standards are and how kids are going to meet those proficiencies at different levels? Like what level 1 is going to be for proficiency. How are we going to know if a student has mastered it? What are those competencies going to be that show that? If students aren't getting, graded based on the work that they're completed in the classrooms. I think that that's going to need to be something that's really written out and very well defined so that it's consistent throughout the teachers in the classrooms. If it's not well defined, I think we're going to find that it varies, and are students truly proficient if we're not able to track that in a standardized way.
It's the work we have to do.
That is the work we have to do. That's also being done at the state level, and it is coming down from the Agency of Education and the Board of Education. And there are also working groups. I know there's the learning educational quality standards that are all part of this, that come from Act 1. And those are about to be published probably in the next couple of months. But the schools have had a version of the educational quality standards for a few years now. Am I correct?
2014.
Yeah.
And the next iteration is sometime
This spring.
soon.
Yes, yeah, as they were revised with Act 1, which is the equity.
Right.
Okay.
The equity
So-
language.
Yeah.
Is this going to be something that was kind of like we're building the plane as we're flying it, or are these things going to be set in place before we start, really, diving into it with our students and with our educators?
We have been working with proficiency-based graduation requirements for a few years now. And it just hasn't been as easy in some subjects as others. There are some subjects that just lend themselves to proficiency-based, whereas there are other subjects that are a little bit more challenging to put on a proficiency level. And Bill, you had something more to say.
Yes. One of the most difficult things for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, and I deal with many of them, is the fact that there are no Vermont credit requirements. That's just plain and simple. The other thing that I think is very exciting is to move away from content-based education. When students get to high school, that's when we lose them. We lose them because we put them into boxes, and those boxes don't fit everybody. When we move away from credit-based graduation, we're able to break the boxes and allow students to be themselves and pursue topics and ideas that fit their motivation. This is the next step of creating a holistic educational system that fits the needs, the emotional needs, the employment needs, and of our future citizens. And I feel extremely strong with the fact that if we voted to say we'll use credits, we're taking a step back. Okay, and this district has worked extremely hard to move it forward. Okay, and there's nothing I want to do more than keep moving forward. That's why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when a student says, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm interested in, then there is someone to assist them and say, okay, if you want, let's say a person does want to be an electrician, so this is what you need as a foundation for that profession. And so they get that through school. I mean, they're learning to read because you have to learn to read so you can then read to learn. And it goes the same with any sort of math because electricity is math, it's physics. It's, having an understanding of how all of that works. And so they are designing an educational experience that will help meet the needs of what they want to do.
Instead of having a school counselor saying, well, you need to take this because you need 3 more credits in English.
And you're still
Yeah.
meeting the proficiency.
In a
You're just
sim-
doing it in a different way.
Yeah,
That's all.
exactly. Still meeting the proficiency and doing it in a different way. And for any parents who are saying, but what's gonna happen, the parents who are concerned about their child that they want to have go to college, what are colleges going to say? Colleges have been working with proficiency-based education for years, and they know how to read transcripts from schools. Rebecca?
I just want to say that I agree with everything that has been said in terms with Bill and Amy in terms of the change in direction. And you're right, colleges do work with you because my last couple of years at the high school, we went into it and we jumped into it, and there were lots of parents who were very concerned about their students not getting into the schools that they want, and they did. There was no problems. The colleges were great. They were just very accommodating and really appreciated the change in some way. It was for them. They said it was quite refreshing. The other piece I wanted to comment on was because I think there was an issue brought up regarding, level 1 and level 2 and level 3. I was part of a school when they were going through this, and it took years. It took years, and yeah, we had meetings after meetings after meetings, and you're right, Amy. There are some subjects that they were so much more accessible to proficiency-based learning. Some departments really got it, and they got it quick, but there were other departments that it was just challenging, but it did take years. But I'm sure that some of that will probably come up when the teachers who visit that Kate mentioned will probably come up in those discussions. So I'm really excited to hear about those discussions.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, me too. And just to let you know, every school board conference that I've gone to for the past however many years, I've been going to school board conferences at the state level, as well as a couple regional conferences that I've been to. This topic, proficiency-based grading, graduation, flexible pathways, this is all part of the conversation. And school boards asking, how does this look? And there are other school districts and boards who have been working with it for quite a few years, and they have ideas, and ideas are exchanged, and it's all very, very exciting. Davis.
So I'm not going to second what all of you have been saying too much. I mean, I agree with it. I think that obviously the movement towards proficiency-based grade requirements, is that it?
Yours, yep.
Excellent. I think that what to me is important, just based on this conversation, right, is that that reassurance that just because we are saying in policy that we will not use credits for the purpose of demonstrating the student has met graduation requirements, it doesn't mean that we're jumping off a cliff and suddenly we don't know how to assess whether students are able to graduate.
Yeah.
Right.
That there's some, and that, I just want to say it plainly because the thing is that this, and the second part of what I'm going to say is that this is like deep educational policy theory stuff. Like it is not, like it took me a minute reading this to kind of get my brain up to speed, and I work in educational design and administration. Like So what I'm hoping is that there is some sort of way, I don't know if the state has materials that sort of translate this into more lay understanding that can be distributed or used, or if we as supervisory union can come up with some materials or some sort of communication plan to make sure that this is getting out and being understood for what it is, because just reading this, I can understand why there might be that perception that it's just like, oh, well, we're axing credits and now we're just gonna be suddenly like, throwing our hands in the air and saying like, well, we think you're good at this, so you can graduate. And that's clearly not
and
what is
that-
happening.
And that has been part of the pushback since Act 77 and flexible pathways and proficiency grading
Yes.
is that, what
I think that
is happening?
that puts the onus on us, though, to be able to explain that in clear and comprehensible terms. So I think that, again, I think this is a fantastic policy. I completely agree with the will not use credits and will receive credit, lowercase credit for outside learning. That's clearly the direction we've been moving in. It's what Flexible Pathways is guiding us towards. It's what we want to be doing to support as many students and as many learning styles as we possibly can. I just want to make sure that we're making that we are expressing that clearly to people, because this policy is a bit confusing.
Yeah.
And we all do this all the time. So I think that we can talk about it in this kind of terminology, but we really want to make sure we're communicating that to a broader audience.
Yeah. Yes, and the state is working on it.
Yeah, the state is, and there's more information coming up all the time. There are organizations called the Nellie Mae Education Foundation. They have a wonderful website that they've been working with Flexible Pathways and Student Voice for many, many, many years. And they have some amazing resources to look at. Caitlin Gould.
Yes, thank you. Davis, I appreciate what you just said. And I think as a community member who hasn't been a part of the building of this policy, that really just hit home, because you read through this and you can tell that a lot of time has been spent on it. But I think as somebody who hasn't been part of the building of it, and who may not be familiar with all the bits and pieces, having it be in a really user-friendly language for parents and other community members is going to be so important, so that way they understand. I have worked with other schools that have the proficiency-based graduation requirements, and I definitely see the benefits of it. And if we can get it to take off in the right way, it can do so well for our students, especially, the population that we have. My concern is, if we're building the plane as we're flying it, what students are going to, possibly fall through the cracks, and how are we going to be aware of those students, that may do it. So Davis, I appreciate the way that you stated that. And I know that other community members will be happy to hear that as well. So thank you.
Sure. And I mean, my concern too is that and I can completely understand where the perception of we're building a plane as we're flying it comes from. Again, just looking right at this document, I think that one of the first steps is to be able to have administration and us on the board be able to clearly and in lay terms explain how that is not really the case, right? To me, it's if we're saying we will not use credits, there's still a transitional period where it's not like we're just immediately switching gears and kind of throwing our hands in the air. It's like we're continuing a transition that's been happening.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, exactly, but yeah.
And it has been for.
But it's also a pretty clear message to teachers.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Yep. I think we're all in agreement.
Okay, Rebecca, you had one more, and then we are moving on to our next policy.
Thanks, Amy. So I thought, I know, Christine, you've done a great job of just putting things in the superintendent's newsletter, and I think the school website also has done a wonderful thing. And I'm wondering if there can be maybe some sort of an ongoing piece, on the website, just giving ongoing news on PBGRS. This way, it's not a document that someone needs to understand at a meeting, that they can go online and check it out and inform themselves and say, oh, okay, so this is a work in progress. But I think that would be valuable.
Yeah, it's really a shift in mental model from credits to PBGRs, and I think that as much assistance as, you know, the folks in this room can give the general public, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, and it's a big shift.
Yeah, no,
It's
it's
a big shift for
substantial.
teachers too.
Mhm. And
So,
And it really all hinges on the personalized learning plan. And we don't have our personalized learning plans. We got a good start on that, and then COVID happened, and we've had a really hard time getting back in. And part of that was, it also landed on the shoulders of our school counselors, and our school counselors, we've been challenged with that in our buildings, understaffed, and then just the other demands on our school counselors. So, I know in Windsor, our student leadership team is working on personalized learning plans. They've got templates. We've seen kids in 7th grade here in this building, 7th and 8th grade, they have their personalized learning plan websites. That is where a kid is gonna say, hey, I wanna study, you know, cartooning, and this is how I'm going to show proficiency in language arts and social studies, et cetera, because I'm going to be studying
And
this
show
way.
it in this way.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh,
So it's very exciting work.
that is, yeah, thank you.
Smart goals.
Okay, we are moving on. Student records. Let me see, I had that one up.
And this one we have.
Education records is what it's called.
Yep.
Were there any questions or comments?
Yes, Larry?
oh, he just stepped out. He'll be right back.
Okay, this came up at, Technology Community in Hartford about, adding, electronic storage end dates on, certain records. And I don't know if this applies to this or not.
On particular records, Val?
It had to do more with emails and other things like that. And I'm not sure if it applies to this or not, or if we already have a policy. There's a new, just because if you don't have an end date to when records are destroyed,
You've got a lot of records.
Yeah.
Building up, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what records will remain and so forth. But I think that would be a procedure piece.
Mhm.
And is that in the administrative responsibilities?
So I didn't read this to think about the emails, like when, with a student's email account. I read this more of their educational, you know, if there's been, again, their proficiency based
Right.
and or credit, depending on the class. And
My question is,
and also, so if there's been any sort of disciplinary somethings, and the transcripts, because at a certain point, let's say a person, they're 25 years old and they decide at that point they need to take a college course for whatever reason, and the college says, can we see your high school? Would they? Would a college at this point ask a 25-year-old?
by law, we can't delete transcripts.
Right, we have
Okay.
to keep them.
So
We have to keep
okay, that's what I thought.
But with things like,
But email.
common, district assessment records, student disciplinary records, things like that, in which how long does the district keep those? And it has to do with litigation down the line. The thing is, it needs to be in policy, so when someone comes up on a litigation of a student who has been gone, say, for 10 years, if our policy is that those records will be destroyed after 5 years after graduation, if it's in policy, we're not responsible for that, because it's in policy. So somewhere in policy, there has to be a cutoff of non-transcript data.
And I think there is somewhere.
Maybe, yeah. And this may not be the place for it, because this
Yeah.
really is whether or not a parent, how a parent or a guardian gets access, or student gets access to that.
Yeah,
But that's,
I can understand how you got there, because I'm just looking at the definitions provided within this policy, and it seems like it's a little bit of a dotted line, right? Where it says the term education records means those records that are directly related to a student and maintained by the school district, a school within the district, a party acting for the school, or a school within the school district. And that can be any kind of record.
Can be email.
Exactly.
Sure can.
Just by this definition, that's it. But it doesn't say, and I think what you're saying, Bill, is it does not stipulate how long you would have to keep
Right.
email records. So,
or any type of electronic.
Any type,
or
yeah.
paper record.
exactly.
In some place, that needs to be dated in policy for litigation purposes.
I'll find out.
Yeah.
because for, let's say, email, within 6 months of a student graduating, that their email account goes away.
It does, but the teacher's email account doesn't go away.
Right,
And if
oh,
there-
true.
And if
Yeah.
there's reference to that student in that email, it becomes part of the public record. So,
Right.
The actual,
for the educational record.
depending on the school, but, the email doesn't actually go away. It's deactivated.
It's,
Right.
yeah,
Right,
okay.
and then, a lot of times emails, well, at Hartford, emails are kept for 5 years.
Mhm.
Or any correspondence,
Yeah.
so.
It'd be good to see where like statute
Yeah.
is at with that. Just,
Yeah.
Right.
I'm assuming there's a law
So,
somewhere.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's on our next issue.
It'll be in the next reading.
Yeah, okay.
I'll find out.
Beth, you have your hand raised, and then Rebecca.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think you're getting way too deep in the weeds for this, because I think we're really just in this policy. It looks to me of talking about educational records, and they made a very point of defining record versus educational record. And so I don't think we're talking about every single email that a child sends out it's not part of their educational record. If you ask for an educational record of a student, that's not what you would be getting. And so it just seems like we're a little bit in the weeds with that. But I think we don't need to go into that now because it's already getting late. So I think we just need to move on.
Is it?
Kind of. Thank you, Beth. Rebecca?
We can move on. Thank you, Amy.
Okay.
So we'll bring that one back for a third reading.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Okay, so student conduct and discipline. And I believe this is the second reading. Let's see, did anyone have any questions or comments?
Yes.
Again, when we finally approve this, that little text box at the top will go
Yeah.
away.
Mhm.
Bill, you had a question.
In the
comment.
future, the state of Vermont will be looking at clarifying the term violence. So I suggest that we,
Hold up.
not necessarily, but if we have a definition we want to put in there, or we want to just realize that we will have to
Change it.
change this at some point. For state reporting reasons, the
Sure.
Sears
Okay.
report, they're going to require more reporting on violent incidences. But again, define that.
Okay, right, and the state is going,
The state is gonna, yeah.
Yeah.
While I wrestle with principles, but yeah. that's-
sounds violent. resolution. Rebecca, I'm sorry, it's not.
It
Um,
does seem-
I didn't get a more recent copy, so I have an old copy, and I think in the past we talked about adding guardians. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, line 6, where it says the goal of this policy is to create an environment where the expectations for student behavior are clearly stated, are understood, and accepted by students, staff, and guardians. Yeah, I think we talked about putting guardians in there.
Yeah, and it is.
It is
It
in
is.
there. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah, this one seems pretty straightforward. I don't think the word violence is in here though, to your point,
I
though,
was
so that
looking,
might be,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
okay.
something to keep in mind.
If you read through what the Sears required is if there's a suspension, there's bullying, there's weapons, there's drug use, and criminally violent. And a lot of principals take that as, oh, the police were called. No, it isn't.
No.
In the definition, it's assault, battery, or maiming in the three things. I mean, that could be put in, that's the definition. The definition's in it, but yeah.
The only reason we
Okay.
might not want to do that is just again, that the word violence doesn't appear anywhere else in the policy, so I think we would have to go through and see, like, we have to do a lot more legwork to
Yeah, and I
justify
would
the definition
prefer
there.
that the state actually
Do it.
Yeah.
clarify.
Yep.
Yeah, so, I guess that is something that we would keep an eye out for.
Yeah.
And, we would probably get a heads up from Vermont School Board Association and Superintendent's Association.
Yeah, if they make those changes.
Yeah. And probably some ruling from the state that will precipitate all of the other organizations too.
Well, the state's ruled on it, they just have formalized it extremely poorly.
So this one will come back as a third read in
Yes.
March, okay.
And substitute teachers.
I'm good with this.
This one's good now.
Yep.
Okay, this one I did not. So this is our third reading.
Yes.
So if there are no concerns with this, we can put that items for action. Oh, it is an item for action. Okay, never mind. Okay, moving on. Title I Parental Involvement Compacts. And this is the first reading. And I remember in my earlier years as a school board member, being somewhat confused by this. It took me a while to learn that this is Title I, which is different. Katie, would you be able to explain a little, or Christine?
It's Angie.
Oh, Angie.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
The basic question would be just why?
Yeah, why?
Is this required? It kind of sounds like it's required.
It is.
Yeah,
Oh,
so,
it is very much required. And it's not, I mean, we talk and we do our very best as a school community to have parental involvement. And we talk about community engagement and having opportunities for parents to be part of their child's educational world. This is standing beside it and above it and below it. It's slightly different animal having to do with Title I and Part A of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which is that,
Has anyone here read that? I have. It's a lot.
So it's ESSA? And that is what took over from No Child Left Behind.
Yep.
Because that was leaving children behind. And
Because we wake up every day and say, you kid, you're being left behind.
yeah. So,
They gotta laugh at Katie.
let's see.
Angie, we're on the Title I policy.
Yeah, Parental
Involvement
involvement contacts.
Mhm.
And how this works, it's a separate, it's its own being based on Title I, that it's different from when we are talking about overall parental involvement.
Yes, yes, I think I have to look at it, but I mean, Title I has its own requirements for, in the grant, they call it family engagement. So they
Right.
have certain things you have to do if we received a certain amount of funding, certain things that we are required to do.
Right.
So let me pull this.
So, for instance, can I just ask if my example is correct?
Okay,
In
my
the
best.
school where I am currently working, they receive Title I grants for literacy. So part of the requirement is that there be family engagement nights
Or in literacy.
around literacy.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
We have a requirement that for Heartland and Windsor, who qualify for school-wide plan, that they have to do a school-wide plan information session, and they are doing those. They did them in March last year, and they're having that information available. There's some other things we're currently under monitoring for that. There's some other things that we need to put in place in order to communicate that. In the monitoring, this policy did not come up, so.
okay,
It is a required policy.
right.
I just checked.
So, yeah.
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, because that's. Title I.
Compact did though, and I think the compact's in our school handbook.
The Title I compact.
Yeah,
I believe so, because
Yeah.
we had a very long discussion about that
when you put it in.
5 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah. And maybe even before that, when people were saying, well, how is this related to our overall community engagement, parental involvement? And this is, like I was saying before you came in, that this is beside, above, and below our regular
right.
community
Exactly.
engagement, parental involvement.
Mhm.
Rebecca?
Well, personally, I think it's a pretty powerful document. I think it's really holding schools accountable for the efforts put into working with the community and trying to engage parents, which I think is really important because we struggle with that. I mean, not only us, but all schools struggle with getting parents in. So I think it's a pretty good document. So my question to Angie is: do we have documentation that's showing that we are? Because I think you talked about that in the past, showing the reaching out to the parents and the community as a result of getting Title I funds.
I'm not understanding the question.
So do we have, so we received the funds, but we need to show that we're following the regulations, that
Yeah.
we're abiding, so I'm saying that, we have documentation which it shows that we do reach out to the community, that we do
Yes.
with parent engagement, that's an effort that's ongoing, and we're doing it on a regular basis.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And that is part of the monitoring process, was for us to talk about all the ways that we include parents in the decision-making process. Now, there's some ways that we're very good at that and other ways that we could improve.
And so I think this is our first reading.
Yep.
Just one quick question, because looking at this, Appendix A gives us a sample of what a parental involvement compact would look like. Do we have that, or a version of that document right now at the SU level that we use, or would we be adapting it from something like this?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So we need to adapt it.
Okay.
I'm trying to see what we've got in the handbook right now.
Yeah, the sample they give here is
It's pretty good.
pretty comprehensive, yeah, but
Yeah.
didn't know.
I mean, we do a lot of these things, it just might,
Of course.
yeah, it's just matching the words with what we do, saying, oh, this is what we do.
Right.
So,
It definitely gives us a good roadmap here.
Okay, oh my gosh, we are down to homeless students, and this is updated wording. I believe, what had Elizabeth had asked. Housing insecure as opposed to homeless. Because, and I tend to agree, because
Even the definition of homeless by law is housing insecure.
housing insecure, correct.
So everywhere it's listed in here.
unhoused, I was trying to figure out what's the politically correct term.
I think unhoused is more
unhoused.
like, is more just kind of in like common parlance now, replacing homeless, but I think the legal term is housing insecure, like at the state level.
I mean, simply, if a student who is living with a friend is considered homeless.
Yes.
By law.
Yep.
But that is more of a housing insecure. Their
Exactly.
housing is insecure. They're having to live with a grandparent or a non-legal guardian, because, or the whole family is.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
So I agree.
Sleeping on someone's couch
Right.
or,
So we'll just change homeless to housing insecure in every.
if that's.
Yeah.
And let me see, Caitlin Gould, your hand is raised.
Yes, just a real quick question. Do we have, as a district, do we have a McKinney-Vento liaison at this point?
We do. Her name's Katie Ahern. She is our, homeless liaison, or housing insecure liaison. I mean.
I didn't catch that. I'm sorry, Christine.
The sound keeps cutting in and out, Christine, on your end.
This keeps happening with these owls. Can you hear us now?
No, I can. Yep.
Okay, our housing insecure liaison is Katie Ahern, our director of student services.
Thank you.
Can't hear, maybe, I don't know.
Generally, we're using the term underhoused from the AOE, and they are still using, just so you're aware, because it's with McKinney-Vento, is still referred to as homeless students or unaccompanied youth. So I just wanted to point that out. Federally, that's given what we're following. If that's as we're looking at our own policy.
Homeless
Right.
means this, so that.
Yeah.
We have the federal term in the document somewhere.
Yeah. Because I think most of us use the term either housing insecurity or underhoused pretty much more frequently than we use any term, the term homeless, because that definitely gives, it's a different characterization, but nothing has officially changed in the rules as far as the AOE or is concerned on their website. Christine and I were looking at this the other day.
We're writing procedures.
Yep.
So I'll just put that on our list, Katie. You and I can figure out where the definition makes sense in that policy.
Okay, and can we have it read at our next meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll do that again. Yep.
Thank you, and thanks for the work that you've done on that.
Okay, so we'll come back.
Okay, we are, oh my gosh, we are ready for items for action. And our one item for action is to approve the substitute teachers policy. And I will take a motion to approve the substitute teacher policy.
So moved.
And that is Bill
Seconded, Davis.
by Davis. Are there any comments or questions pertaining to the substitute teacher policy? Hearing none, I will start with a roll call, and I'll start with online. And Anne Marie.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Colleen.
Aye.
David. Oh, Davis. Yeah.
Aye.
Here you are. Sorry. You're also here on the, yeah, sorry. Going down this, yeah. Jamie.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Nancy.
Did she say Nancy? Aye. Couldn't hear it.
Rebecca.
Aye. Amy, you are going in and out.
We need executive session. I don't believe
I don't
so.
think so.
Thank you, everyone, for all the work that you've done on policy. I hope everyone can still hear me, kind of, sort of. And I wish everyone a very good evening. And just a reminder, town meeting is coming up. People are running for school board and budgets will be voted on. So please get out and encourage all of your friends and relatives to go out and vote. If they're not registered to vote, get them to register to vote. You can register
Same
the
day.
day, yeah, same day registration. It's all made very nice by the state of Vermont. So, and good luck to everyone at town meeting and good luck to our budgets, yes. So I wish everyone a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming out and have a wonderful time. We'll see you
Wednesday.
Wednesday at the budget meeting. Yeah, at least Mount Escutney.
Yep.
Yeah.
So take care, everyone. Oh, no,
Oh.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Nancy, second. All those in favor, just raise your hand. Yay. And Anne Marie, your hand is virtually raised. Thank you very much.
Right.
Have a great evening. Take care.
Good night.